Welcome to the second episode in a Legendarium series about the beginning of the African slave trade. In part 2, Searching for Prester John, we will talk about the explorations that inadvertently began the trade in African slaves. In the first episode, we talked about how Prince Henry the Navigator sent an explorer named Gil Eannes south of Cape Bojador in 1434, believed by medieval Europeans to be the edge of the world. After this pioneering voyage, more and more Portuguese became willing to venture further down the Atlantic coast of Africa. In 1435, Prince Henry the Navigator sent Eanes with another explorer named Eanes-Gonçalves Baldaia. He gave them what would become standard instructions: look for the River of Gold, seek the whereabouts of Prester John, and find a water passage under Africa. The River of Gold referred to the source of gold carried by trans-Saharan caravans, and a passage under Africa would take European traders to the rich markets of India. But what of the third objective, Prester John? During the Crusades, a legend emerged among Europeans about a Christian king who lived beyond the borders of the known world, named, not surprisingly, Prester John. Fanciful tales claimed that Prester John ruled from a capital called Ola, where the Faison River, one of the streams of Eden, watered his lush gardens. Legends also told that he ruled a city plated in gold and silver and possessed the miraculous body of St. Thomas. When the Crusaders failed to find Prester John in Asia, scholars decided that Prester John lived in Africa, and Henry the Navigator, whose kingdom battled Muslim princes in the Mediterranean coast of Africa, hoped to recruit Prester John as an ally against the Muslims. For gold, God, and glory, the Eanes-Baldaia expedition headed south. They traveled 125 miles south of Cape Bojador when their ship reached a river. 2 scouts went ahead and encountered a party of 19 Africans. A fight erupted, and one of the scouts was wounded in the foot by a spear. They eluded the war party by hiding behind some rocks and then made their way back to the ships under cover of night. After learning of the brawl, Baldaia headed further upriver, eventually finding the Africans' abandoned camp. A little further ahead, they found a pod of monk seals. They slaughtered dozens, taking their skins as trade goods that would finance the expedition. They also boiled down the seals' oil for soap making back home in Portugal. After packing the pelts and oil, Baldaia sailed another 175 miles south until he came to a fork in the river, marked by a rock promontory shaped like a galley ship. After this discovery, the expedition went home. Though Henry was ecstatic with the success of the expedition, a renewed war with the Muslim states of North Africa halted further expeditions for more than 5 years. Yet during that time, a Venetian cartographer named Andrea Bianco produced a map of the world informed partly by the new Portuguese findings. This map is part factual and part mythical, both medieval and modern. It included a bay at the southern end of Africa, believed to lead to Prester John's kingdom, located in Ethiopia. Bianco also drew in recently discovered islands like Porto Santo and Madeira, but included them alongside medieval fancies such as the island of Antilia, said to be ruled by 7 Visigothic bishops who fled the Muslim conquest of Iberia in the 700s, and the Isle of Cockaigne, said to be inhabited by people who lived in houses made of meat pastries, where the roads were paved with pastry, and buttered larks wandered the roads, inviting the lucky inhabitants to eat them. By 1441, another of Henry's brothers, Pedro, became regent of Portugal and ended the war with Tangiers. That year, Henry sent 2 more captains, including his personal chamberlain Eanes-Gonçalves and Niño Tristo, to explore Cabo Branco, a landmark in modern-day Mauritania distinguished by white sand. They followed the route charted by the 1435 expedition and made their way to the galley ship Stone Promontory at the confluence of the 2 rivers. Henry ordered them to hunt for more monk seals to supply skins and oil that would finance further adventures. Instead, the expedition found and captured an unclothed man carrying a spear and his Berber slave woman. Gonçalves then decided to catch slaves instead of seals. With 20 soldiers, he marched to a faraway hill and found a Berber camp. There they killed 3 people and seized another 10. Hoping to catch more, Gonçalves sent 2 of his captives to sit on the beach. He hoped this would draw out a rescue party that he could capture. Instead, a force of 150 camel-riding warriors ambushed them, and the Portuguese barely escaped with their lives. He sailed further south and captured another 15 people at Cabo Branco. He ambushed them as they traveled in their canoe. One of the men almost escaped the Portuguese by diving under the water, but he was seized when he had to come up for air. When Gonçalves returned to Portugal with his 24 captives, Prince Henry the Navigator hailed him as a new Alexander the Great. And whether or not anyone realized it at the time, he had just opened the door to one of the most infamous trades in human history. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.